Hello to you all. We are back, RHTVLive, streaming from the Netherlands, streaming from Maastricht. So, of course, we're looking at geopolitics, right? What's happening around the world. And first, we're going to take a look at history, right? Now, what happened during the first Gulf War? You guys remember that? Maybe you guys are too young, or I don't know. But we're going to look at the first Gulf War, which happened in Iraq, right? Now, here we have Iraq, and they needed basically a reason to go into Iraq, right? So next to Iraq, or under Iraq, we have Kuwait, right? And Kuwait was attacked by Iraq. Now, there was this girl who testified babies out of incubators and this and that. And we're going to take a look at that because it's very, very important. We need to learn from history. So, here we have the Kuwaiti girl who is basically the daughter of the Kuwait ambassador, you know. And they paid her a lot of money to make up a story about babies being dragged out of incubators. And this was the prelude to the first Gulf War.
They pulled out his fingernails and applied electric shock to sensitive private parts of his body. I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of the incubators, took the incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor.
Desert Storm is launched. 135,000 Iraqis are killed. An estimated 1 million Iraqis, many of them children and old people, then die as a result of 10 years of sanctions.
Hillary Knowlton selected her as a persuasive witness to this atrocity, and it was all part of a campaign to turn Saddam Hussein, at least in the public consciousness, into Adolf Hitler. And the feeling was that they couldn't sell the Gulf War without this.
Soon after we arrived in Kuwait, 2 weeks after the liberation, it became apparent that the story was a complete hoax. We were able to go round the hospitals to count the incubators and find that, possibly with one or two that had been misplaced, that none were missing.
The war very much had to be sold to the American people in order to convince them to intervene militarily.
So, a war has to be sold, right? Now, take that into account and think of what's happening in Gaza and Israel, right? A war has to be sold. So this was the first Gulf War, and very, very sad thing to see. Many Iraqi people have died because of this. And, it's gross. It's like, why? Why do you do this? But this is what happened in history. And of course, we're going to go forward in history. So this is the first Gulf War, right? It's been sold on a lie. And now we're going to look at the second Gulf War, which was also sold as a lie. Remember the weapons of mass destruction? Well, it was weapons of mass deception. That was what's going on, and basically there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, even though Western countries had thought, that Saddam would have weapons and this and that. So after the intervention in Iraq, there we have Iraq. After the intervention in Iraq, the first Gulf War, right? Iraq attacked Kuwait, the oil fields, and a second intervention was needed. Yeah. So they lied about the weapons of mass destruction. Now, every year there's this, presidential speech with the press and stuff like that. And Bush had made his remarks on the weapons of mass destruction. So we're going to take a look at that. And keep in mind, right, war is meant to be sold. You have to fabricate a lie for, the war to be sold. Bush laughs at no WMDs in Iraq, no weapons of mass destruction.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. As you can tell from the look on Andy Card's face, we've become a little concerned about the vice president lately. Whenever you ask him a question, he replies, "Let's see what my little friend says." But we get along well. Here I am saying, "Dick, if the Hunan Palace doesn't get lunch here in 4 minutes, we're going out." Nope, no weapons over there.
So you are laughing at the expense of Iraqi people who have died, because you invaded Iraq, you as America, right? And you guys were angry because you were attacked on 9/11. Now, according to the 9/11 Commission, you have 19 Saudis, right? One from Yemen and one from Libya. So 21 hijackers. And, Saudi Arabia was involved in 9/11. But instead of attacking Saudi Arabia, they attack Afghanistan first, right? So here we have Afghanistan. And this whole story of Afghanistan is also very complex. But to put it in a nutshell, there was this group made in neighboring country Pakistan named the Mujahideen, right? We have Zbigniew Brzezinski at the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan. And Zbigniew Brzezinski told the people on the side of Pakistan, God is on your side. You can take that land over there. God is on your side. So this was the beginning of the Mujahideen, right? And that was basically made because Russia or the USSR invaded Afghanistan, right? And in neighboring Iran, you also had the revolution against the Shah. The Ayatollah came into power, who wanted to spread Islam and stuff like that. So Russia wanted to prevent that and attacked Afghanistan. And America made up a proxy, right? Mujahideen. And we're going to show you Zbigniew Brzezinski at the Khyber Pass in Pakistan. Saying, God is on your side.
U.S. National Security Advisor Brzezinski flew to Pakistan to set about rallying resistance. He wanted to arm the Mujahideen without revealing America's role. On the Afghan border near the Khyber Pass, he urged the soldiers of God to redouble their efforts.
We know of their deep belief in God, and we are confident that their struggle will succeed. You know, that land over there is yours. You'll go back to it one day because your fight will prevail and you'll have your homes and your mosques back again because your cause is right and God is on your side.
The purpose of coordinating with the Pakistanis will be to make the Soviets bleed for as much and as long.
There you have it, to make the Soviets bleed, right? So the Soviet Union was the invading part in Afghanistan, and the Mujahideen fell apart after they won in Afghanistan into three parties. You have the Taliban, the Northern Alliance, and Al-Qaeda, right? So we're also going to take a look at something very interesting, an X-Files spin-off. Uh, 9/11. Let's see if we can find that. The lone gunman, yeah. Maybe we can, the lone gunman, let's see. Let's see if we can find that clip. There is an episode, here it is.
And begging
Now,
to be smart.
Now, think about this, right? This is something to think about. So first off, we're going to see a simulated, attack on the World Trade Center, and then the guy confronts the people behind it,
Yeah, I wound up in some government think tank's upload directory. Here's your scenarios, ladies. These look like counterterrorism scenarios, war games developed for the Defense Department.
What's scenario 12D?
Airline terrorism? That doesn't make sense. Your father was murdered over a war game? Download it. Uh-oh. Ixnay on the ammo day. What is it? Bogey. We've been spotted.
Sir, we've got an intruder. I'm tracing.
They're running some real-time...
What the hell are you doing? Why can't you stay out of this? Leave me buried.
What is scenario 12D? We know it's a war game scenario, that it has to do with airline counterterrorism. Why is that important enough to kill for?
Because it's no longer a game.
But if some terrorist group wants to act out this scenario, why target you for assassination?
Depends on who your terrorists are.
The men who conceived of it in the first place. You're saying our government plans to commit a terrorist act against a domestic airline?
There you go. Indicting the entire government as usual. It's a faction. A small faction.
For what possible gain?
The Cold War's over, John. But with no clear enemy to stockpile against, the arms market's flat. But bring down a fully loaded 727 into the middle of New York City, and you'll find a dozen tin-pot dictators all over the world just clamoring to take responsibility.
Now remember, a war is supposed to be sold, right? You have to sell the war. Now, looking at the situation in Israel, Gaza, right? You have the former Prime Minister of Israel having an interview with someone from Sky News, and Naftali Bennett, the former Prime Minister, was very, very rude to the interviewer of Sky News. Now, here we have Richard Medhurst, the Syrian guy. I believe he's living in England right now. And he's pretty much informed on what's happening in the Middle East. So we're going to take a listen to this here.
The former Israeli Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, who was Prime Minister, barely a year ago, he went on Sky News, and I just want you to watch this clip. This is really one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. It is so vile that words fail me.
And what about those Palestinians in hospital who are on life support, and babies and incubators whose life support and incubator will have to be turned off because the Israelis have cut the power to Gaza?
Are you seriously keep on asking me about Palestinian civilians? What's wrong with you? Have you not seen what happened? We're fighting Nazis.
What?
We don't target them. Now, the world can come and bring them anything they want. If you want to bring them electricity, I'm not going to feed electricity or water to my enemies. If anyone else wants, that's fine. We're not responsible for them.
This is the point.
But you
this
keep on.
I
want to tell you. No. Listen. You listen to me right now. I've heard you enough.
No, I understand. We're trying to have a conversation here. Listen, this is my program. This is my show. And I am asking the questions. You're raising your voice, and I've asked you, and we've already stopped, please, and let me finish. We've already distinguished between Hamas.
I want to tell you, shame on you.
You're trying to speak over me.
We are not. Shame on you.
It's nothing about shame. We're trying to have a conversation about a very serious situation.
Jesus Christ! I don't even know what to say. It's not over, by the way. It still goes on for another minute. Like, he has the nerve to say shame on you. How can someone so shameless tell other people shame on you?
Situation here, and you are refusing to address it.
Jump over immediately, and again, you
absolutely not. You are incorrect.
They are responsible, because I can tell you that when the UK,
absolutely
when Great Britain was fighting the Nazis during World War II, No one asked what's going on in Dresden. It was the Nazis targeting London, and you targeted Dresden. So
Listen.
shame on you if you go on with that false narrative.
We're not talking about that, and in hindsight, many people have listen. And in hindsight, many people have readdressed that kind of carpet bombing.
Now, wait a minute. Beheaded babies, right? Think about this. We have to sell the war. I have not seen any evidence of babies being beheaded. You know? So, this is something to think about. We have to sell the war. And if we look at what happened a few months ago in Israel, right, we see that there were demonstrations in Israel about 6 months ago. Let's see if we can. Well, right now you find everything about what's happening right now. Let's see if we can find that in the history. It's got to be here somewhere, right? There were also elections in.
Yes.
So here we have mass demonstrations in Israel, and this happened 6 months ago. You know, Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to go past the Constitutional Court, and there was a political crisis. You know, Israel is unstable ever since Netanyahu basically left and another party came into power, Naftali Bennett. And, you know, after that, we have Netanyahu again. And Netanyahu was supposed to go into court, right, because of war crimes and this and that. So we're going to take a look at this here. Netanyahu fired his defense minister.
This comes just hours after embattled Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu dismissed his defense minister. That cabinet member said he would not support Netanyahu's attempts to take power from the judiciary. The battle over Netanyahu's plans is now intensifying. Here's ABC's Patrick Reevell.
Israeli cities tonight erupting in protest after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sacked his defense minister today, the country's political turmoil rapidly deepening. Netanyahu removing Yoav Gallant, a member of his own Likud party, after Gallant called for a pause in the government's controversial plan to weaken Israel's judiciary, essentially stripping its power to have final say on Israel's laws. The plan triggering weeks of massive protests.
So here you have weeks of massive protests, millions of Israelis coming together and protesting their government. Now, remember, we need to sell the war, right? And even kijken, er zijn ook Nederlanders die meekijken. Kan ik ook overschakelen in Nederlands. Ja, en kijk, Jacob die kijkt ook mee. Nou, mijn Turks is niet zo heel goed. Hè? Dus we houden op Nederlands. Ja, hier zo zien we massademonstraties in Israël. En ja, de oorlog moet verkocht worden, hè, zoals eerder gezegd. En ja, nog geen foto's gezien van onthoofde baby's en zoiets allemaal. Dus ja, ze hebben weer een reden om een oorlog te gaan verkopen. De vijand moet gecreëerd worden. Maar we gaan even kijken naar een ander clipje. Dan gaan we even vooruit in de tijd. Want dat doen we als tijdreizigers. Gaan we vooruit in de tijd. So this here is a clip of an Israeli lady who has connections in Israel. And we're going to take a listen to this here. So.
Netanyahu intentionally let Hamas kill Israelis. Both the IDF and the Israeli Air Force both stood down for 7 hours. You won't believe what a Jewish charity leader told me today.
Israel has the most sophisticated intelligence in the world. There was no way the government didn't know that that was going to happen. We're friendly with several good people in Israel. One is Rabbi Hanania Weissman. He knows a lot of people in Israel. He knows confidential sources that he shared with us their information about the stand-down order. He sent out a missive that, indeed, the IDF was given stand-down orders, both the Army and the Air Force, 7 hours to stand down while those attacks took place. And this allowed the terrorists to come in and begin slaughtering and torturing the citizens. Personally, I think that this situation is akin to a family keeping a rabid dog in their home and then blaming the dog when the baby gets bitten. The parents needed to remove the dog many weeks ago, right, before the dog had a chance to injure somebody in the family. So I look at the government of Israel, and they really needed to make sure that these people did not proliferate on their borders. And so they are held partially accountable for having to now go kill God's creations in order to secure their border. This should never have happened.
So there we have it, right? A war needs to be sold. Nou, we moeten de oorlog gaan verkopen. Oh, Hamas gevaarlijk. Ja, maar degenen die echt gevaarlijk zijn, dat is dus een militair-industrieel complex. Waar Eisenhower over waarschuwde. Those are the real enemies, the military-industrial complex, pointing out enemies there and there and there. First it was Saddam Hussein. You guys remember that? So first it was Iraq, right? Oh, Iraq, Saddam, fout, aanvallen, moeten wel iets gaan verzinnen. Baby's uit incubators. En massavernietigingswapens. Heel veel Irakese mensen dood. En ja, triest. Echt heel erg triest. Maar goed. Kijken we nou naar Israël. Dan zien we dus dat de Gazastrook eigenlijk helemaal afgesloten is. Hè. Een grote hek om Gaza heen. Nou, Noord-Gaza is helemaal plat gebombardeerd. Ze hebben zelfs ziekenhuizen gebombardeerd. En zoiets. En er wordt gezegd, je moet naar Zuid-Gaza toe gaan. Dus, so the north of Gaza was bombed to hell, basically. There's not much standing. And people need to go to the south of Gaza. And over here, they're also blockaded, right, by the Israeli Defense Force. Even though people say it's Hamas who is blocking the border. Nope. Ja, mensen zeggen van ja, het is Hamas die de grenzen sluit. Nee, het is een samenwerking tussen Egypte en Israël die de grenzen daar sluit. Heel af en toe gaan ze open, Want er komen mensen vanuit Egypte, die proberen dan de mensen in Gaza te helpen. Dus heel af en toe is die open, laat ze wat Egyptenaren binnen en dan sluit ze meteen de grens. Dus dit gebeurt. En the wars are supposed to be sold. We moeten de oorlog gaan verkopen. Dus very sad to see at the border of Egypt. It's permanently closed, even though Egypt opens it for people who want to help in Gaza. The border in Jordan is also heavily armed. There were a lot of Jordanians who wanted to go to the West Bank, and they were stopped by Jordanian army men. Yeah, very, very sad to see, because it's the Jordanians want to help the Palestinians, but they're not allowed to. Ja, ze mogen niet, de mensen in Jordanië mogen dus niet de mensen in Palestina helpen. Ja, die worden gewoon beschoten door hun eigen leger met traangas en noem het allemaal op. Dus, maar we laten de echte vijand zien, namelijk het militair-industrieel complex, waar Eisenhower over waarschuwde bij zijn farewell-adres.
A vital element in keeping the peace is our military establishment. Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action, so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction. Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
We are knowledgeable, right? We know what's happening. We know what's going on. We weten echt wat er gaande is. Ja, ze onderschatten de mensen. En ja, het is gewoon heel, heel erg triest. Maar ja, dit hoort dan eigenlijk bij de onzichtbare oorlog. The invisible war is going on. And we're going to go back to Richard Medhurst talking about European democracy. Kijken in welke staat de democratie nog functioneert in Europa. En ja, er wordt dan ook vergeleken met Arabische landen. Daar is massaal, echt massaal, mensen op de been voor Palestina. So in the Arabic world, massive demonstrations, millions of people out on the streets for Palestine. And we're going to take a look at what's happening in Europe, so-called Free Europe. Oh. Wait a minute. Gaat iets mis hier zo. Er gaat iets mis. Ik had de verkeerde aangeklikt.
For Palestinians. Again,
even terug. Zo.
These so-called European democracies with their so-called free speech and how they treat people who, dared to go out and march for the Palestinians in Gaza. So first of all, the French completely banned any rallies for Palestinians. Again, not Hamas, for Palestinians. You're not allowed to come out and protest what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. You have to shut up. And they even use tear gas to crack down on the protesters. God, I hate that term. They always use it for propaganda. The Syrian regime cracked down. But this is actually real. They were using tear gas. And I want to show you how disgusting this is. They even went and beat up Jews in France who had come out to protest alongside the Palestinians. Look at this. Look at how unhinged the police are. They are the ones who are actually anti-Semitic because they are okay with Israel killing Arabs, and then they come and beat up Jews who are also against Zionism.
Hoe zijn ze? Du hast ze. Hoe zijn ze? Ja. Da ligt nog Okay, come
The Zionim are very violent everywhere in the whole world, and here in France, the young man here got hit violently, and even the police were shocked. They didn't react. They didn't know what to do. But for us, it's not a surprise. We are not at all shocked. They are liable to do this. They do not care for Jewish people. They only care for one thing: Zionism. They can kill everyone. They do not mind. Kill many Jewish people. They can kill. If Zionism has to win, Zionism is the biggest enemy of the Jewish people. And this is Amalek, and they fight against Kadosh Baruch Hu, and this is that's why they're bringing bloodshed to the Jewish people. The only place in the world where Jewish people are being killed is in Palestine, because they are fighting the Goyim and fighting HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you fight HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's no peace. HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes.
Now these people are Orthodox Jews, right? They don't believe in the right-wing government of Israel. Dat zijn orthodoxe Joden, geloven niet in het regime, het apartheidsregime, zo kun je het wel noemen. En ook zij worden gewoon belaagd. These people are harassed in France.
Sure, they're going no peace with you, and no.
Look at this in Germany. The Germans have banned any rallies and tried to replicate what France did. And people actually, the French police were not able to stop people coming out in Paris. Just look at this. They're saying "Nous sommes tous des Palestiniens." So this is on the Champs-Élysées, and they're saying we're all Palestinians. Yeah, so they then came with the tear gas and so on, and they do the usual thing with sending the CRS, the riot police in France. And you have here.
These are the seeds you sow. Dit zijn de zaden die geplant worden in Europa, en dat groeit tot massademonstraties, miljoenen mensen in Frankrijk, in Duitsland. Nederland, Nederland is niet een land die demonstreert, maar dit gebeurt. Maar ook elders in de Arabische wereld werd er gedemonstreerd. Maar dan voor de Palestijnen, zonder dat men tegen werd gewerkt door de politie. Althans, in Irak, Jemen. Dan wel Jordanië, dat heb ik ze net gezegd, die beelden komen ook straks langs. Dus we gaan doorkijken.
I'm going to show you some of these photos. This is from Iraq. This is from today, from a few hours ago. So they have massive rallies. Because remember, it's Friday, right? So it's the day off for Muslims and in Arab countries, so it's easier for people to come out, and you'll usually have protests that are organized on Fridays. So just huge. Remember, Iraq has the Hashd al-Sha'bi, the Popular Mobilization Forces. So that's considered part of the resistance axis, and therefore aligned with Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, Syria. It's kind of cool because these groups don't share the same, beliefs, political beliefs, religious beliefs, or domestic or foreign policies. They just share one goal, though, which is national liberation and getting rid of, colonizers, be it the Americans or the British or the Israelis. So that
national liberation, that was what it's all about, basically. Bevrijding van de bezetter, of het nou Amerika is of Engeland of noem maar een ander land op. Daar draait het om in het Midden-Oosten, en ook grote delen van Afrika. Dat zien we nu ook. Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Gabon, om een paar op te noemen die de Franse kolonisten eruit kicken. Yeah. So there's a lot of kicking out the colonizers, right? As I've said in Dutch, Africa, right? Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea, and Gabon all kicked out the French.
That is cool to see them working together, because you need to have a strong alliance, and through unity, by having the Arabs unite, they become stronger. And it's not just the Arabs. Again, you have Venezuela, which is considered part of the resistance axis, or Iran. So people came out all over the place. Here, I'll show you. This is in Aleppo in Syria. And then you had people here in, so hold on, I wanted to show you the one in Yemen, the one in Jordan.
They said Hamas are terrorists, that's what they're chanting, right? And all of Jordan are Hamas. Ja, heel Jordanië is Hamas. Ja, wordt er eigenlijk in Jordanië gezegd. Moet je zien wat een mensenmassa. See all these crowds. I don't see any cops bashing in heads or whatever over there.
Yeah, so well, you saw the translation. This is also in Syria, and they also had protests in so these pro-Palestine marches in Jordan that I was telling you about, where they were trying to go to the fence or the border with Israel, and the security forces were harassing. So the security forces in Jordan were harassing Jordanians, right? Like, instead of just opening the border and letting them go and march and take back Palestine, they keep them in check. You know, it's ridiculous. Yeah, so people just like I said, they were doing marches all over the place, really all over the Arabic world, and also outside the Arabic world. So in Iran, they had huge rallies almost every single day, you know. But today's rallies were the biggest, and I just want to show you like the irony, because you know you're not allowed to open your mouth about Israel in the West, but yet it's freedom of expression. And you know, if you don't support Israel, you're an anti-Semite. If you don't support Ukraine, you're a Russian asset or Putin puppet or something. You know, they always have like these stupid catchphrases to just shut you up and label you and put you in a corner if you don't comply.
Exactly. Well, I'm not complying. I'm not choosing sides. Right? I know who the real enemy is. Ik weet wie de echte vijand is. Ja, dat is namelijk het militair-industrieel complex, die dus ook Google in handen heeft, en YouTube en noem het allemaal op. Ja. Dus we worden hevig gecensureerd en we doen ons best om de informatie naar buiten te brengen, ook al is het in de huls van de nacht. Tijd is irrelevant. So, you know, over here it's 1 o'clock a.m., but time is irrelevant. It's another time at another place, right? So, yeah, you need to sell the war, but you're not allowed to demonstrate in Europe anymore. Because otherwise you choose sides for Hamas.
With their propaganda on the border, so between Jordan and occupied Palestine. So they're using tear gas on them.
So this is at the border of Jordan and the West Bank. The Jordanians are trying to come into the West Bank, but are held back by the military and police throwing tear gas.
Yeah, you know, it's very reminiscent of the 2018-2019 marches, and I want to show you just quickly what various countries did, right? So I showed you that they did a ban on demonstrations. Okay, in France. In Germany, they banned the...
Ja, je ziet, de Netherlands. Ja, Nederland staat ook in de lijst. Ja, je mag geen Palestijnse vlag dragen. Want dan ben je meteen voor Hamas. En meteen word je in dat hoekje gestopt. En ja, snap je? Maar ik kies niet voor Hamas. Ik kies niet voor Israël. Ik kies voor geen een van de twee partijen. De dualiteit moet eruit. We must get rid of the duality and, you know, have an objective view of what's really happening. A war is being sold right in front of us, right? I have not seen the things that Israel claims to have happened during the Hamas raid, put it that way. It's not an intifada yet, but it's brewing.
The Berlin rally, and also, by the way, Germany banned last year the Quds Day rally, which is an annual. It's called Jerusalem Day, not the Israeli one, but a Palestinian one, and it's done every year. They banned that completely, saying it's pro-Hamas. So they're using this line about Hamas being terrorists so they can justify taking away people's civil liberties, their right to protest, their right to criticize Israel. That's what it's about. It's like after 9/11, in the name of combating terrorism, we have to take this away from you. We have to spy on you. We have to do this and that. And then it's any notion of democracy or all the bullshit that they tell you about Israel being a democracy and human rights, and we have in common. Oh, they share the same European values. What values? They're eroded and long gone. So Netherlands.
The Netherlands. We're going to come to that, but first, let's see what Richard says.
They said that pro-Hamas demonstrations would be intervened in by mayors because of concerns regarding anti-Semitism.
Now, pro-Hamas demonstrations, that means if you're wearing a Palestinian flag, you're automatically for Hamas, right? So there is a very big difference between the Palestinians and Hamas. Hamas was created by Israel because the PLO was disbanded after Arafat had died. We're going to get to that.
Semitic expressions. Once again, you need to understand
anti-Semitic expressions.
Something. Arabs are Semites. The real anti-Semites are the Israelis. Why? Because the Israelis are not from Palestine. They are colonial settlers, and they have built Israel at the expense of Palestinians, at the expense of Semites.
Now, remember in that movie, that James Cameron movie, where you had Pandora, Avatar. You remember that movie where the colonizers bombed basically Pandora, and the colonizers were human, right? So we're going to take a small glance at this here. I do have to say it's a pretty cool movie, good special effects. But the humans were colonizers. Now, people watching this movie, they won't think about the Palestinian question situation. This is a reflection of Hollywood basically saying, this is happening. But everyone was for the blue people. I forgot what their name was, but everyone was cheering for the blue people. These guys over here, because they were the inhabitants of Pandora. They were being attacked by the colonizers. Now, put that into perspective of what's happening in Palestine, right? So, iedereen was voor die blauwe gasten hier. Iedereen voelde met hun mee. Zij leefden met de natuur en zoiets. En de mensen, die kwamen Pandora binnen. En dat waren de kolonisten. Die gingen die blauwe mensen uitroeien. Ja. Dus als je dat in perspectief neemt, met wat er gebeurt in Palestina, ja, dan, ja, voor wie heb je dan het meeste sympathie? Dat is maar de vraag. Dus, ja, dat is iets om over na te denken. Ondertussen hebben we dus ook in Oekraïne een oorlog. Ook in Sudan hebben we een oorlog. En eigenlijk is het Derde Wereldoorlog een beetje al begonnen. So we're going to take a look, a last glance on the war zones within the world, right? So over here we have Ukraine in a war with Russia. Now Ukraine used violence on their own people. You know, a national pride party was stomped from the ground using old Nazis and Nazi symbolism and stuff. And they gained power and are in power in Kiev. This is because of a coup, what happened. You know, we have Victoria Nuland talking to the American ambassador in Ukraine, who's going to gain the seat of power. Now, when this radical faction came into power, they attacked the Russian-speaking Ukrainians. Yep. And this is how the Donbas War began. You know, and Crimea had a referendum, so they joined Russia, and Donbas, or the east of Ukraine, was attacked and is still being attacked. And we know that the US State Department was behind the transfer of power, and we know that it's probably 100% from the military-industrial complex and other institutions that are connected to the military-industrial complex, right? So we have a war in the east of Europe. We magnified Israel. Oh, something went wrong there. Daar ging even iets mis. We hebben een vergrootglas op Israël gelegd. Want het is echt belangrijk om te weten wat er gebeurt. Ja, dus we have Ukraine at war, Israel at war, and we also have Sudan. Even though there's a ceasefire between the coup army and the military alliance that they have, you know, with the RSF, Rapid Special Forces, paramilitary forces. So that fell apart, but there is a ceasefire, and it's fragile but still holding, you know, and that is keg powder that could explode any moment. Dus er is een wapenstilstand, maar die houdt niet lang stand, want er wordt nog gevochten elders in Sudan. There's still fighting going on in other parts of Sudan. So over there we have a war, right? And we have, as I've said before, many coup things going on. Niger had a coup, Mali had a coup, Burkina Faso had 3 coups. And this is because of all these factions within Burkina Faso, right? We have basically, you had a president, then the army took over, right? And the army is divided, as we see in Sudan also, with paramilitary forces. And some paramilitary forces are aligned with the French, right? So one paramilitary force overthrew the army, which was French aligned, and they invaded France. And, then you had another coup, another faction overthrowing that coup government, So that's what's happening in Burkina Faso. And Guinea, we also had a coup. And in Gabon, which is over here. So we're really looking at geopolitics here. And we also see that China is eyeing Taipei or Taiwan. They want to take it over, but they don't know how yet. And that is a whole different story. There are basically 2 Chinas. You have the Democratic Party of China, and you have the People's Republic of China. And the Democratic part is Taiwan, and the Communist part is mainland China. And Taiwan says mainland China is ours. They want to democratize China. And the CCP, or mainland China, says Taiwan or Taipei is ours. You also see that happening in the Korea Peninsula, right? First it was one country, and now there are 2 countries opposing ideologies. So I think we gave enough geopolitics for now. And I hope that people have learned something here. And thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. And we'll see each other next time. Bye-bye.